the
ridiculous
people
now.
that are coming in and watching the sport and are fans of the sport feel like maybe they're there for a weird reason.
This is 2025. This is 2025. I'm sorry. This is a point that you could maybe have argued early 2024. The WNBA, no offense to the players, is not culturally relevant.
This is where the contradiction becomes impossible to ignore. When the discussion turns to the league's growth, we are told that crediting Caitlin Clark is disrespectful to past players. That growth, we're told, must be viewed as collective. But when negative elements emerge, toxic discourse, cultural tension, media chaos, suddenly it becomes acceptable to place responsibility on her shoulders. She is denied credit for the positive while being blamed for the negative. That logic does not hold up. If one player is not powerful enough to influence growth, then she cannot simultaneously be powerful enough to create all of its problems. You cannot have it both ways. Yet, that is exactly what is happening in these conversations. On Sue Bird's podcast, this framing becomes clear. Fans are scrutinized. Their motives are questioned. It is implied that interest driven by one player is somehow illegitimate. But no clear standard is ever defined for what a correct reason to watch basketball even is. Every league gains new fans through stars. That is not corruption of the sport. It is how the sport survives. Treating new fans as a threat instead of an opportunity is a dangerous mindset, especially for a league still solidifying its place in the mainstream.
Right. A year ago, it did come at a time where obviously a lot of things were politically completely divisive in America, and a lot of people used the WNBA to push those narratives. But there's a million other things that people are pushing for their political narratives right now, rather than the WNBA. There's a million other things they can talk about. Those same people that were using Caitlin Clark or using Angel Reese on either side of the spectrum to make points against the other side are using other things. They're talking about other things because there's more relevant things in life.
The claim that people are watching for weird reasons might have held some weight early in Caitlin Clark's rookie season. In April 2024, the league was at the center of intense cultural and political discourse. The Kennedy Carter incident amplified tensions. Media narratives were volatile. At that moment, it would have been fair to say that not everyone tuning in was there purely for basketball. But that moment has passed. We are now 9 months removed from that chaos. Political commentators have moved on. Cultural debates have shifted elsewhere. The people still watching in January 2025 are not casual controversy tourists. They stayed after the noise faded. If these fans were only there for outrage, they would have left long ago. Instead, they continue to watch games, follow teams, learn players' names, and engage with the league. Yet, the narrative persists that their presence is somehow problematic. That narrative no longer aligns with reality. It lingers not because it is accurate, but because it allows certain voices to maintain control over how growth is defined and who gets to participate in it.
They're still watching are fans of basketball, and to say they're there for weird reasons completely wrong. It's literally like saying, oh, you know, fans of the NBA was on tape delay 2 years ago. You know all those fans that are here for Magic Johnson and Larry Bird? They're here for a weird reason. They weren't watching on tape delay, so it doesn't matter. Like, it's trying to make that a point. It's ridiculous.
And now they've found sort of maybe one player to hyper-fixate on that they feel stands at odds with what a WNBA player is in their mind.
To understand why this debate is flawed, we have to be honest about where the WNBA stood before the 2024 season. This isn't about disrespecting the players or the league's history. It's about acknowledging reality. Before 2024, outside of a few exceptions like the Las Vegas Aces and occasionally the New York Liberty, drawing 3,000 fans to a game was considered a strong turnout. Television exposure was limited. Some games aired on tape delay. The league was operating at a financial loss year after year. This isn't opinion. It's documented fact. Google search data shows that interest in the WNBA prior to 2024 was roughly 1/10 of what it became during the season. 1/10. That means the conversation around the league simply wasn't happening at scale. Media coverage was minimal. National relevance was rare. Yes, women's sports as a whole were growing. Women's soccer was surging. College basketball had momentum. But the WNBA was not fully capturing that energy. The product on the court was strong, but the spotlight wasn't there. Then 2024 arrived and everything shifted. Attendance spiked. Television ratings soared. National media began covering the league consistently. That type of change doesn't happen randomly. Every major sports boom has a catalyst. The NBA had Michael Jordan. Tennis had Serena Williams. Golf had Tiger Woods. The WNBA is not exempt from this reality. Acknowledging that a single player accelerated growth does not erase the contributions of those who came before. It simply recognizes how professional sports ecosystems actually function.
About this is like you can see Sue Bird's kind of smile. At least you can see Megan Rapinoe being like, fuck. Fuck this. Where it's like, you brought on Caitlin Clark as a guest, and you're not pushing back. And by the way, the fact is that people are watching for Me Too comment. So you're simultaneously admitting, when you want to talk about it in a negative way, you're allowed to say, oh, all the bad fans are only here for Caitlin Clark, but all the good fans are here for everybody else. You're allowed to do that.
And they passionately love that player in a way that actually just feels like it's hate being disguised as love.
The WNBA's 2024 season brought with it a level of attention and scrutiny that no one could have realistically predicted. And yet, here we are in January 2025, well into the off-season, and the same debates continue to dominate conversations in sports media and online forums. We are still asking the same questions. Are fans tuning in for the right reasons? Are they watching basketball, or are they watching one player? More importantly, are we approaching these questions with the nuance and perspective required to understand what's truly happening in the league? The answer is a resounding no. The persistence of this conversation is not only frustrating, but also indicative of a broader misunderstanding of sports growth, audience behavior, and the dynamics of modern fan engagement. This debate recently resurfaced on a high-profile platform, Sue Bird's podcast, which is significant for several reasons. This show, hosted by one of the most iconic figures in women's basketball history, has directly benefited from the growth in viewership and engagement that came as a result of the very player being discussed, Caitlin Clark. To criticize fans for showing up in large numbers on a platform that owes much of its reach to the player driving that engagement is an extraordinary level of cognitive dissonance. The implication is that fans who were instrumental in helping the league reach new heights are now being questioned for their motives. It's an almost paradoxical situation. The WNBA is experiencing unprecedented attention, yet a segment of commentators remains determined to frame that attention as somehow illegitimate. To properly contextualize this, consider the league's landscape before 2024. Attendance numbers were modest across the board, with a handful of exceptions. Teams like the Las Vegas Aces were consistently drawing strong crowds, and occasionally the New York Liberty would see a surge in attendance for special matchups. But for most franchises, filling 3,000 seats in a game was seen as a major success. Television exposure was extremely limited, with many games airing on tape delay rather than in live primetime slots. Revenue was struggling, with the league operating at a loss year after year. These are facts that cannot be ignored. Google search trends and analytics clearly show that interest in WNBA content prior to 2024 hovered at roughly 1/10 of what it became during the 2024 season. 1/10? That is not a matter of opinion, it is quantifiable data. It's also important to note that women's sports were growing across the board at that time. Soccer, college basketball, and professional leagues in multiple sports were all seeing surges in viewership and media attention. However, the WNBA, despite its talent pool and on-court quality, had not yet fully captured that momentum. The league had long needed a catalyst, a figure whose presence would not just draw attention, but shift the national conversation. That catalyst arrived in the form of Caitlin Clark. Her rookie season in 2024 shattered expectations across the board. Clark's combination of scoring, playmaking, and personality created a fan base that previously did not exist at this scale. Suddenly, games were selling out. Television ratings spiked. Social media engagement skyrocketed. National conversations about women's basketball intensified in ways that had never been seen before. Yet, when discussing this newfound popularity, Clark is often denied credit for the league's growth. There is an insistence that acknowledging her influence is somehow disrespectful to players who came before her, as if one cannot recognize both history and present achievement. But when negative consequences of growth appear, such as fan toxicity, intense media scrutiny, and political debates, the same voices are quick to place blame squarely on her shoulders. She becomes responsible for the bad without being credited for the good. The logic is flawed, and it ignores how sports ecosystems actually function. In every professional sport, stars drive growth. Michael Jordan transformed the NBA. Serena Williams transformed tennis. Tiger Woods transformed golf. Recognizing Clark's impact on the WNBA is not a slight against her predecessors. It is simply an acknowledgement of how influence and engagement operate. The claim that people are there for the wrong reasons is also outdated and increasingly absurd. Early in the 2024 season, during the first 5 or 6 games, this argument might have had some merit. There were controversies at the time, including the Kennedy-Carter incident and a wider cultural discourse that fueled national attention. Some fans were tuning in due to the spectacle and the debate surrounding the league. However, it has now been 9 months since that period of intense cultural and political scrutiny. Those who remain engaged are not casual observers. They are committed viewers who care about basketball. They learn player names, follow the season closely, and invest in merchandise and team support. The idea that they are watching for ulterior motives simply does not match the evidence. Moreover, the logic that these fans are hate-watching collapses under scrutiny. Hate watching assumes that interest is conditional upon the presence of a particular figure to criticize or ridicule. Yet Clark attends Team USA training camp, and the video clips generate over 1 million views. Fans continue to watch her play golf during the offseason and remain invested in the league. Indiana Fever games without Clark still attract hundreds of thousands of viewers. These are behaviors consistent with genuine fandom, not disguised contempt. Hate watchers leave when the object of their attention is absent. Real fans stay. The continued engagement proves that the fans who arrived because of Clark have transitioned from novelty interest to long-term commitment. This brings us back to a critical point. The WNBA's growth is real, measurable, and driven in large part by Clark's performance and presence. Attempts to delegitimize new fans under the guise of moral or cultural critique are counterproductive. They do not protect the league. They risk alienating the very audience responsible for its expansion. Growth should be embraced, not questioned. Fans are the lifeblood of any league, and understanding that a star player can act as a catalyst for new engagement is essential for sustainable success. Ultimately, this conversation is not just about one player or one fan base. It is about the way we understand progress in professional sports. Growth is often uncomfortable, and rapid changes disrupt established norms. But dismissing that growth or questioning the motives of those participating in it is short-sighted. The WNBA now stands at a moment of unprecedented opportunity, with a broadening audience and heightened visibility. The choice for league leaders, commentators, and fans is simple. Either embrace the change, celebrate the expansion, and invest in long-term sustainability, or resist it and risk marginalizing the very forces driving success. Caitlin Clark did not create this debate. She revealed the league's potential. The question now is whether the league and its critics are willing to acknowledge it.
In April of 2023, you could absolutely make that argument after this situation. There could be some validity to that argument. But like the fact is that Caitlin Clark rocking up for Team USA training camp has 1 million views. Like, apparently they're there out of hate. People are following every move Caitlin Clark and going to watch her play golf out of hate. Like, it's fucking bullshit. And again, the fact that this is being put out as a highlight of a clip and it's not pushed back on by these hosts who are supposed to be there growing the game, and you've essentially let someone blame one person